As you've hopefully been able to gather, I am a pretty big Star Wars fan. My family watches Star Wars almost every single year around Easter because for some reason it's always on at that time. And I did splurge on a lightsaber for myself. But despite my love of the Star Wars films and the Star Wars games, Jedi Fallen Order is an absolute masterpiece, and I am devastated that I haven't been able to play Survivor yet. I have actually not really read any of the books, so I decided that to celebrate Star Wars Day with all of you this year, I would try and read as many of those books as I could get my hands on. I actually was able to read 6 different Star Wars books, and I'm going to talk about all of them with you. I actually really enjoyed all of these books, and they were very different from each other. Now, none of them are the High Republic books, but they do take place over a wide range of time, from slightly post-Clone Wars all the way up to right before the sequel trilogy. So you are going to get a big range of different time periods, different characters, and different perspectives. So let's dive right in. The first book that I read was Rebel Rising. This book focuses on the character of Jyn Erso, the main character, or one of the main characters from Rogue One. Rogue One is, I will be honest, my favorite Star Wars movie. These people play such a small part in the bigger story, but the part that they do play is so important. And most of them don't even wield the Force. Rebel Rising focuses on Jyn Erso's life from the point that her father is taken by the Empire all the way up to the point where her adult story starts in the film. We see her rescued by Saw Gerrera and be trained by him, seeing where she gets this survival training and her hatred of the Empire, as well as her kind of distaste for the rebellion. We also see her go on missions with him, and then we see her grow up being on her own, trying to have a normal life, and always seeing these plans and these desires for a normal life failing as she continues to be pulled into other people's plans and ends up being taken advantage of. What I really liked about this is that it really showed us the different perspectives that characters in the Star Wars universe have on the rebellion. Because Saw Gerrera is very anti-rebellion. He's definitely anti-Empire and does a lot of his own missions, but we don't actually ever see him express any sort of approval for the rebellion. But his attacks are also very bloody and very gruesome. There is a specific moment that I don't want to spoil for you, because if you choose to read this book, it's such a jarring moment. But it's the first time that Jyn ever goes on a mission with Saw. He tells her to stay away from the building, but she goes in anyways, and what she sees is an absolute bloodbath, with civilians being injured as well as targets. For Jyn to see this person who she has seen as her hero all this time doing things that she does not necessarily agree with, it's a moment that shows just how far some people are willing to go. And we also see that with Jin's father, where he's willing to work with the Empire to try and keep his family safe. And Jyn is not willing to do either of those things. If you're a fan of Rogue One, or even if you aren't, I really do think this is a really enjoyable book that you don't require a lot of knowledge about the Star Wars universe to have understood. It's a really good read, it's really interesting, it's quite fun as well, which is kind of a dark thing to say about a book that has so much violence in it. The next book that I read was Ahsoka, and this book is one that is another origin story, and it focuses on the character of Ahsoka Tano. Now, this book is a little bit different because it does require you to actually have some knowledge about the Star Wars universe. Obviously, Ahsoka doesn't appear in any of the movies, so you do have to have known a little bit about who this character is in order to really appreciate what's going on. This book follows Ahsoka post the Clone Wars as she is going into hiding, trying to keep herself hidden from the Empire and its Inquisitors. She finds herself hiding on a small farming moon by the name of Rada. When she's there, she realizes that no matter how far she runs, she will never be able to outrun the Empire, as she watches the residents of this small moon struggle with the harsh treatment that they start receiving from the Empire. What I really love about this book is that we really get to see Ahsoka's character development from a young teenage girl who has too much experience as a child soldier to a young woman who has realized that running is not the answer and that her ability to hide in her training that she's been given is not something that everyone who is force sensitive has been afforded. Now, I will say some of the characters that we meet on Rada I do find a little bit annoying because they have absolutely no self-preservation skills at all, which is irritating to me. But getting to watch Ahsoka realize that she doesn't just have herself to look after and that there are people out there who are going to want to fight back and just can't because they don't have the skills she does is a really good reflection of how she comes to decide to join the rebellion. Another aspect of this book that's really interesting is that Ahsoka finds a young girl who is force sensitive, and that is another thing that makes her realize just how privileged she is to have the training that she has. This young girl is being tracked by an Inquisitor, and Ahsoka realizes that she has not received the same training as her, so she doesn't know how to hide her skills. She doesn't know how dangerous it is that she is able to do the things that she can. And so Ahsoka immediately kind of latches onto this girl and decides that she needs to help her. Overall, if you like the character of Ahsoka Tano and you enjoy the Clone Wars, or maybe you're newer to Ahsoka's character and you want to dive a little bit more into who she is, then I highly suggest giving it a read. But it's a fun book, it's fairly lighthearted, and it's just good old classic Star Wars fun. The next book that I read was Thrawn, and if anything, this is the book that does not need you to have any sort of knowledge about Star Wars whatsoever. This book follows Admiral Thrawn, who quickly rises his way up through the Empire's rankings in the Imperial Navy. Now, if you are familiar with Thrawn from either Star Wars Rebels or perhaps you were introduced to him with the live-action Ahsoka show, then this is a really interesting book that will introduce you to how he got started within the Imperial Navy and how he got to the place that he is today. However, if you're not familiar with Thrawn, that's okay too. As I said, you don't even have to know anything about Star Wars to enjoy this book. This book is primarily a political thriller. It dives deep into both the Imperial Navy as well as the Senate. I don't typically think of myself as a political thriller fan, but honestly, it was pretty good, and I really enjoyed it. You follow Thrawn as he very quickly and unprecedented speed rises up the ranks of the Imperial Navy through manipulation and his incredible strategic military skills. You also follow a character by the name of Arinda Price, a mining heiress from the planet of Lothal, who decides to try and rise her way up through the Senate in order to get revenge on the governor who ruined her family's life. Now, both Arinda and Thrawn are not good people. They are pretty much the definition of morally gray characters. Girlies, if you're not willing to thirst over Thrawn, then you cannot claim you're a lover of morally gray characters, okay? I want to see that. Now, occasionally, Arinda and Thrawn will do good things, but for the most part, they are very self-serving. Arinda especially learns on very quickly how much betrayal, corruption, and blackmail there is within government, and she very quickly decides not to fight against it, but to take it to her own advantage and start using her own skills to try and get up ahead. Somehow, you end up rooting for these characters. Even though you know that they are not good people, they do terrible things, you still end up rooting for them, hoping things go their way. It's a really, really interesting book, and I'm not sure if it would necessarily be a good one to start into the Star Wars universe, but if you're a fan of political thrillers, then yeah, maybe it is a good place for you. And if you're a Star Wars fan and you're thinking, but wait a minute, I'm not a big fan of political thrillers, trust me, I didn't think I was gonna enjoy a big political thriller, and I really did. The next book we're talking about is Fasma. Now, this book is an origin story of Captain Fasma, but it's actually not told through her point of view. This book is actually told as a frame narrative. So you've got your main story about Fasma, which is actually a narrative which is being told by the character by the name of Vi, who is a resistance spy who has been captured by the red-armored Captain Cardinal of the First Order. Vi is trying to tell him everything she knows about Phasma's origins because he considers Phasma to be his rival and wants to try and find out if Phasma has ever committed some sort of crime against the First Order. What ends up happening is we get two really distinct stories, both of which are really compelling. We get the story of Phasma's origin on a planet called Parnassus. She starts off as a member of a clan who lives in this cave on a coast, but when a First Order ship carrying General Hux, not the one you're thinking of, his father actually, crashes on Parnassus, Phasma sees this as an opportunity to take her family and her clan to the stars. Fasma and her followers going off to explore Parnassus to try and find the crashed ship. The world building in this section really blew me away. Parnassus is interesting because we actually get to see a variation in the types of landscape that we're exploring. But what's really compelling to me is seeing the way that the lives in the desert have adapted to survive the lack of moisture, especially the specific thing they call a blood beetle, which are attracted to any drop of moisture that drops into the sand. A single drop of blood and thousands of them scurry out of the sand to try and get this moisture. And they're also attracted to movement because they believe, oh, this is something I can bite to get moisture. And if they do bite you, you will be infected, your organs will liquefy from the inside out, and you will explode into water. Onto the frame narrative structure where we're focusing on Cardinal and Vi, that story is also really interesting. We get to see Cardinal slowly realizing that the First Order is not as good as he thinks it is, and how futile his attempt to take down Fasma through the traditional justice system is. And a lot of times frame narratives have a difficulty where one story is more interesting than the other, but I genuinely found that both of these were really interesting. Fasma, as a young woman, is just as tactical, as ruthless, and as heartless as she is in the films. So it's really exciting to be able to see this character be built on in this way. She's a terrible person from the beginning, and I appreciate that they did that. The next book that I read was Leia, Princess of Alderaan, and this is a book that is a coming-of-age story for Princess Leia as she discovers that her parents are secretly forming a rebellion against Emperor Palpatine, as she also tries to prove herself worthy to claim the throne of Alderaan one day. Now, this book was one that I was a little bit worried about. I mean, Princess Leia is an iconic character and immediately an incredible leader from the first time that we see her. So how do you keep that amazing personality and incredible character that everyone loves, but also have them grow and have them change? But the author actually completes this really well. Even in this book, Leia is an incredible natural-born leader, and she has a desire to do good and to help people. Even before she knows her parents are involved with the rebellion, she already is trying to find loopholes with the Empire's rules to try and help people. One of the other great things about this is that we get to see Leia actually be a teenager. She has a short little crush that she ends up dating for a while. She has friends and she goes on these adventures with them. And so it's a really great way that we get to see this character who still has this balance of being a great natural-born leader and a really incredible character to follow, but also is fun and younger and different. One of the things I really loved about this book is the way that the all-around politics works. So instead of Leia just automatically becoming queen one day, she has to prove that she is worthy of the throne through 3 challenges. The first is a challenge of the body, she has the challenge of the mind, and the challenge of the heart. First of all, I think that's an incredible idea for a twist on a monarchy, that they don't just get this, they have to prove it. And they have these 3 different sections of how they prove that they're worthy of that position. But also I think it's great because it shows us all these different aspects of Leia. The challenge of the body shows us that she's not just this prim princess. She's willing to do missions and actually have action. The challenge of the mind shows us what kind of a political leader she can be, and the fact that she is so intelligent and good at finding loopholes. And the challenge of the heart shows us exactly how Leia is so dedicated to helping people and exactly the kind of work she's planning on doing when she gets into the rebellion. I really enjoyed it. It was nice to see Leia be sort of playful but also intelligent and strong, and I felt that it was a really good way to introduce this character to the rebellion without making her seem like a character who didn't know what they were doing, and really holding on to the core values of what makes her so special. The final Star Wars book that I read for this series is also pretty special because it's the only one that I didn't borrow from a library, and that is Jedi Battle Scars. And also pretty cool, I was honored enough to be able to meet the author who signed the book for me. Jedi Battle Scars follows everyone's favorite poncho aficionado, Cal Kestis, and the crew of the Mantis between the Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor games. So if you're like me and you've played the first game and absolutely loved it, but still haven't been able to get your hands on the second one, this is a good book to read. On one of their missions, they find a stormtrooper who wants to defect from the Empire and has information for them on a big job that they need help with, but they're going to have to be careful. Can
can they really trust this person? And they are going to come face to face with another Inquisitor, which will put the entire team's trust in each other at complete odds. I really like this book. Instead of focusing on a longer period of time, it focuses specifically on this one event. It starts with a mission where they meet the person who is trying to defect from the Empire and goes through the mission that they lead them on. And that is pretty much it. We don't get a whole lot more, and frankly, we don't really need a whole lot more. I love the fact that this book focuses on the specific moment and really breaks down the actions that happen, the impact that these have on each other as a team, and we get to see the team work together really, really well as seeing how they clash with each other because of their varying missions and goals that they have as they're working together. I loved seeing more of Cal and Merrin together. I absolutely love Merrin. She's so much fun, and I love Cal as well. He's such a great protagonist. But getting to focus a lot more on Merrin's mindset post joining the crew of the Mantis after leaving Dathomir was really great. We got to see how much struggle she's having with this, and we also get to see sort of the self-doubt that she has. We get to see how Cal and Seer have these completely varying missions, these completely different ideas, and they've both been very deeply affected by the events of the first Jedi Fallen Order game in very different ways. It felt very much like a case study of this team, and I really, really loved that. I love being able to spend more time with them, especially since I'm longing so badly to play the game. But it is such a great book, and honestly, a really nice way to round out this goal of reading these Star Wars books. Okay, that is it. That is every single Star Wars book that I read this year to celebrate Star Wars Day. I really, really enjoyed them. I hope that maybe I piqued your interest in these books if you haven't read them. And if you have read them, let me know. Which ones did you read, and did you enjoy them as much as I did? One of the things that I've always loved about the Star Wars universe is that there are so many different worlds and perspectives and characters to dive into. Getting to see the origin stories of these characters, which have been so well thought out, is just a really nice touch as well. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more videos like this, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and stick around. But that's it for me today. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see all of you lovely people in the next video. And may the 4th be with you.